a cappella you in the past, so I cannot hold a candle to that, but I try my best.
Oh, well, how did you know that I did a cappella?
I do my
You
research,
must have
Adam.
listened.
Yeah, you got it. The key to being a good guest and having a good conversation is knowing the person you're talking to.
Yeah, man. How do you do that, though, given how busy you are? Do you have, you
It,
must have a secret for doing a little bit of quick research that gets you a bunch of recaps.
yeah,
No.
that's it. No. I literally tune into like 2 minutes of 5 episodes, and I feel like it gives me a really good perspective of energy and the flow. So yeah, I don't have a really good hack. I usually find myself in between meetings, and I'll have like 5 to 10 extra minutes, and I just look you up and see what you're doing in the world, pretty much.
No, I mean, you just said your hack was 2 minutes, 5 episodes. That tends to give you a pretty quick intro to whoever you're listening to. I would think. I mean,
Yeah,
seems to work for you.
yeah, it works well.
I guarantee you, no one I've had on my show has ever once mentioned the fact that I did a cappella, and that was one of the first things that popped into your head. So
Well, for
that's a
me,
strat.
it's super interesting because there's a lot of things that I'm like pretty good at. I really wish I was good at singing. I mean, if I could sing, I told my wife, if I could sing, you would get so sick of me because I'd be singing all day, every day. So I always respect that. I look up to that.
Well, I can promise you, I'm probably better at singing in your head than I am in reality.
Well, it's fair. That's where it starts though, right? It's like, well, I wouldn't know that unless you told me.
Sure.
Right?
Or unless I sang to you, which I'm not going to do here.
Well, it's Friday. We're partying. We're in good moods. We're in good places. So yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you, my friend.
Yeah, you too. I was actually going to ask you, I've never asked anybody this question before. Speaking of Fridays, what does your day look like on a Friday compared to any other day of the week? If you
Same.
tell me yours, I'll tell you mine.
It's the same. Yeah, I get up at 6. I go to the gym. I come back, and then I work pretty much in the office from 9 to 6. That's pretty much the same. This is a weird thing for me because I'm just at the place where we're doing this, but I'm kind of doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday are public facing days for interviews and stuff. And then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday are behind the scenes where I'm not going to be on camera. That's something new that we're kind of rolling out. So Friday is a public facing, same as every other day.
And why go that cadence as opposed to just random?
Monday, I find, is usually pretty calm until like midday, and then it's mayhem. Tuesday, I need to make sure I'm fully caught up on Monday. So it just made more sense to have Monday a public-facing day. And very honestly, I'm not a big enough name where people are just going to fit me into their schedules. Monday, Wednesday, Friday are usually pretty heavy booking days. People just usually have those available for some reason.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, my Fridays, I don't know if this is just the nature of the industry I'm in, but Fridays are almost like a Saturday in my industry, which is internet marketing. I don't know why, but I suspect it's because guys and girls, but it's the majority men who end up in this industry. I think they just tend to get lazy by Friday. By the time Friday rolls around, they'd prefer it just to be a Saturday anyway, so they treat it that way.
Interesting.
That's my suspicion. I've never asked anybody who works in the same field as I do why Fridays are just slow professionally. So literally, I got a massage today, and I'm doing this podcast today.
Nice.
That's it.
I'm glad I made it. I'm glad I made it onto the schedule on a Friday.
Yeah, me too. I'm the sort of person that has to be doing something, otherwise I don't feel as valuable. And that goes into, there's deeper issues there, but I've had therapy and business coaches help pull that limiting belief to the forefront of my mind. So at least I know, even if I spent the entire day today, for most people, they're going to work 9 to 5 today. And I'm not. And I fully understand that I'm semi-retired and I've got things that I've invested in that I can live off of if I needed to. But from when I was a young kid, and I do apologize for taking up a lot of time here. I really want to hear mostly from you.
It's all good.
So I am going to ask you more questions.
It's all good. I'm a podcaster. I like conversations, so you could talk the whole time, and I would not be remotely offended.
Well, that's probably just because of the nature of you being the type of person that wouldn't get offended at anything, probably more so. Anyway, when I was really young, we were homeschooled, and I'm the oldest boy of 8 kids. So I had this sort of feeling of accountability that, my dad left when I was 12. So I felt responsible for my siblings in a weird sort of brotherly but fatherly sort of way. So I would tease them mercilessly, but at the same time I would expect them to get their chores done and do their schoolwork, and I would crack the whip on all. It was just this weird dynamic. So I just grew up with this expectation that you get all your stuff done and then you have value within the family dynamic. And my mom never said that out loud explicitly, but her upbringing was on a farm in North Dakota, as were all my ancestors. That's where I was born. And it was just the nature of living in a harsh climate like that. We homesteaded. We literally, my great-great-grandparents moved from Norway, dug a hole in the ground in North Dakota their first year, and lived in that for a couple of years until they built a home to live in.
My goodness.
And there's a book that was written about it. And that's how pretty much all the Norwegian Scandinavian immigrants lived when they moved to the Dakotas and the Minnesota area. So I think that's in my blood. I feel like I've got to be doing something productive to feel like I'm contributing to society and valuable. But now that I actually live in such a crazy, abundant life, that mindset doesn't really work and serve me very well sometimes, because I can't relax.
Yeah.
And my wife harps on me in a good way about just taking some time to relax occasionally. Are you married, by the way?
I am. I'm happily married.
How long you been married?
It'll be 3 years in August.
Okay. Good job.
Appreciate it.
Being a successful man, in my opinion, and according to statistics, you should be married if you want to be successful. And it doesn't matter what you do. It's just having somebody that you're responsible to take care of. I believe it's the man's responsibility to be the one to lead out in taking care of your family. Whether you're the one that earns all the money or you share that responsibility, I think it falls on the man's shoulders first. And some people hate me for saying that. A lot of people agree with me. I don't know where you fall on that spectrum.
My personal is I want to be the one to take care of everyone. I think that's my natural personality and the way I'm wired anyway. So for me, I mean, that's my personal belief for me is it's my job to take care of everyone.
And when you say everyone, does that just extend to the whole human family, or are there levels of importance?
There's definitely levels, but I am a nurturer and I am a protector at heart. And I think that's why I got into, now there's a fine line between being a nurturer and a protector and a martyr. Those are two very, very different things, and there's a fine line. But I think I got in the business of helping people because I love helping people, to a detriment at times where I have to say, Kev, there's a big difference between being a hero and a guide. A hero goes and tries to save everybody. A guide says, look, I have charted the way and you can come with me, but you have to be the one to carry the weight and you have to do your thing. So that's something I'm kind of learning more and more as we get closer to that opportunity.
So this sounds like a little bit about what some of my coaches have told me on how they operate. And I've had athletic coaches, but also business coaches as well. I've spent the last month and a half looking for a business coach, and I finally found one after a lot of interviews. But talking to all these coaches, it's very important to them that all the people they coach know that it's not the coach doing all the work. It's
Right.
the person that they're coaching doing all the work. And the coach is more just there to stand beside you and give you encouragement and support and good, solid advice. But the person that's being coached has to put in that work. And I apologize again for not doing my research on you.
No worries.
I look terrible, but I'm just going to ask, are you a coach then professionally in any
Yes.
capacity? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I started doing like mindset, peak performance stuff earlier in the journey. And then eventually it got to the place where I just would have podcasters ask me, how did you guys get to where you're at? It's like, I don't know. They're like, well, if you had to know, how did you get there? It's like, oh, okay. So then I started working with speakers, other coaches, and podcasters. And that's essentially where the vast majority of my time is spent now.
So that's the type of folk that you are coaching then.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. This is interesting. Speakers, especially for me, I've spoken at a couple events, nothing big. It's like very niche conferences, like people who buy and sell domain names. I've spoken at one or two of those conferences because I've bought and sold thousands of them. So everybody, I know that everybody in that industry, so it wasn't hard
Right.
to get a speaking gig. I didn't get paid for it or anything, but making a living being a speaker seems like it would be pretty competitive.
For sure.
That industry.
Yeah. And there, again, I don't know. I'm curious to your perspective on this because you have a very different perspective and industries specifically than I do. I think most people sell the dream of the anomaly to the masses that will never experience it. So I know some speakers that get paid like $100,000 per speech. Yes. But that's 1% of 1% of 1% of 1%. I mean, they are the rarity. They are the Metallica, the Taylor Swift of their spot. So it's super competitive, and I think you have to find other ways to make money for the vast majority of the time until you have a big enough name where you can get paid to speak. Like the fact that you didn't get paid, I've done hundreds of speeches I didn't get paid for, and people hear that and say, well, that's kind of a waste of time. It's like, no, that's how you get your foot in the door, just like any other industry, really.
Okay. That's good. I mean, I'm probably never going to go out and try and be a paid speaker.
Yeah.
Anybody who's listening to this, I feel like that would give them some context, at least, just for helping set expectations. Like if I wanted to be a speaker and get paid, now I know there's a lot of work that goes into that, doing unpaid gigs.
Yeah. Well, you got to think from the perspective of who's bringing you in. They're thinking, big places are thinking, are you going to put butts in the seats? Like that's what the big places are thinking. Like, oh, nobody knows who you are. It's not really going to help us fill it, which is not going to allow you to get paid. So that's a really, really big thing. And then it's like specificity. What are you the best in the world at in terms of the accomplishments you've had, the accolades that you've created, and then how well do you speak on that? But I think the big part is like, how big is your audience? Unfortunately, in a lot of things, that matters almost more than anything.
How big is the speaker's audience? Is that audience?
Yeah.
Interesting. How do they gauge that typically?
Social media following is a big one, like email lists. It's essentially what can we do for you and what can you do for us is essentially, if you blast out the fact that you're speaking here, will that bring 1,000 people? If so, cool. It might be worth us paying you $5,000, right? It's just
more of a partnership opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's the majority of it. And then eventually you get to a place where like a Gary Vee is a good example. Like he gets paid a lot of money to speak, but when you see that he's speaking, it's more likely to sell out anyway. So then it eventually just becomes, it's like a sporting event. If there's a really good team in town, there's going to be a lot of people that go and they're going to sell way more tickets. Right? So it's kind of the same process.
Interesting. Have you ever watched the show Nashville?
I have not.
And I'm watching it on Hulu right now with my wife. We just started it. We went as a family to Nashville last year for spring break. First time we'd ever been. But country music is a huge part of my background. That's how I learned music, was through country music. So is super fun for me to be there with it, going to see the Country Music Hall of Fame. and see where people like Johnny Cash and all those famous 60s, 50s singers got their start was in Nashville. But this show, Nashville, it's a drama. And it's interesting how it starts by flashing in on the career of a lady who's been a veteran in the industry, but it's this year for her specifically was the first year they saw declining ticket sales.
Mm.
And she was so upset about that, this character on the show. She's like, I'm so famous. Everybody knows me. How can I not be selling sold out venues? And they're like, perceptions shift. Values and entertainment requests and generations change their tastes in music. And like she had to figure out how to make a change.
Mm.
So they brought in a younger, blonder version, and this chick could sell tickets just because of the sex appeal.
Yeah.
For no better reason. I mean, she had a good voice and everything. But I must be a nerd or something, because that sort of fascinates me, how perceptions and tastes change over time. Because I've got an 18-year-old son, and the style and the fashion that he is going through right now is what was big for me in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. It's really wild, and it's the same brands too. It's crazy to see how things change, but they stay the same at the same time.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie The Substance?
No.
It's graphic, very graphic. So I'll throw that out there. But it's very, I would do a Google search if you're fascinated by that type of stuff, because it's essentially the same story. This person's they have like an exercise show, and they're getting older, and as they get older, they get treated completely differently. And then they bring in the young person who's really attractive, and they talk about like the psychological underliances of that. It's a really good movie. I was surprised, but it is maybe the goriest movie I've ever seen in my life. So I'll throw that out there. Just FYI.
The premise of that show doesn't sound like it lends itself to a lot of gore, but
yeah, it's interesting. I guess the high level is you get access to this drug that can make you stop aging, essentially.
Oh, that's cool.
And it comes with a lot of warnings that people do not heed, because
side effects. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you use it right, things are good. If you don't use it right and you abuse it, things aren't good. It's kind of that story of, yes, as a human, you're given a really good opportunity, but we tend to take those and try to steal. We get a little bit of greed around really good opportunities, and sometimes we take them a little bit too far.
Oh yeah, fully agreed. You can say that about so many things in life. You could say it about the internet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trash on the internet.
For sure.
And AI, same thing. Really quick side story.
Please.
I used to own the domain sideeffects.com.
Interesting.
And we just plastered a bunch of really poorly written content on it about the side effects of every single drug we could find. There was just hundreds of things you could write side effects about. And that was a really fun one for me, because I've got a journalism degree, and writing is sort of also in my blood. My parents are both very talented writers. My dad was the poet laureate for the New York Times. My mom's got 2 master's degrees in childhood education. And in homeschool, all you do is read and write, basically, and to the exclusion of almost everything else. But being able to have those 2 skills, just being able to write and read really well, you could teach yourself just about anything you want to know. And that's what I learned from homeschool. And so I applied those skills to this domain, sideeffects.com. We bought it for like $50,000. I had to get a group of buddies together to buy it. And then we turned around and flipped it for twice that much in 6 months.
Interesting.
Just with adding content to it. And I haven't even thought about that domain in so many years. It's been like 10 years. Memory lanes.
How does that, so you go find, yeah, do you find a domain that you think somebody's going to need eventually, and then you buy it and hold it and add value to it, and then somebody reaches out, and is that how it works? Is it like real estate kind of?
Yeah, I would say it's identical to real estate, because there's a lot of things you can do with a piece of real estate. Even if you just have an undeveloped piece of land, which in our metaphor, that would just be the domain name itself. Some people like owning certain types of land, and they'll pay for the land itself and just never do anything with it. Just they'll squat on it. And there's literally a term called domain squatting, just doing that exact thing. And then there's people like me who I can take just about any domain name and develop it into something that is valuable. So people do want to be associated with it in one way or another. And there's like 20 different ways you can monetize a website once you have it developed to the point where people care about it.
Right.
And having a background in SEO and writing, I just exploited those specific skills, and I own a news network of a bunch of these type of websites now.
Right.
And so that's what pays for everything. That's why I can be semi-retired.
So interesting.
Well, I just sort of fell into it and had no idea I was ever going to do any of that stuff. I just knew I didn't want to work for other people the rest of my life.
Yeah, same.
And that's how I started.
Same. There was no lemonade stand. There was no paper route. There was no, I never thought or wanted to be an entrepreneur. It just happened one day. And now here we are.
So what does your entrepreneurial kingdom look like from all the ways that you monetize yourself? What does that look like?
Honestly, it is mostly coaching.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost, I would say 95% of our revenue as a business comes from coaching, one-on-one or one to several. We haven't focused on like one to scale yet. We have courses and stuff, but that's not a big focus. We're not tapped out in terms of our effort, but that will be the next thing, is one to scale and more sustainable, scalable things.
Do you do mastermind groups at all?
We do group coachings, but not like your typical mastermind, no.
I learned about that concept last year when I read Think and Grow Rich for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was the one that coined that phrase. And if he wasn't the one, then one of his buddies did. But that's when it started to get used, that phrase, mastermind.
Yeah.
Was back when that book was written. And I just started my own mastermind group with a bunch of, we call it the Council of High Achievers. Sounds really fancy. I said that name to my son. He's 18, and he's like, sounds like you're part of the Galactic Empire or something.
That's what you were going for.
No doubt. We do want to take over the entire galaxy. But it's one weird thing that I've found about myself that I think most men also struggle with now that I've talked to thousands of them is it's hard for us to connect with other men quickly and easily and deeply. I find that most of my guy friends have like a really core group of really, really good diehard friends.
Yeah.
But it's hard to go outside of that group for any reason.
Interesting.
And that's a skill that can be developed, I believe.
Yeah. I was telling my wife this. It's like I'm really good at facilitating friendships in certain spaces. I can make friends with anybody at the gym. And it's just not that hard, but I think it's because I've spent so much time in the gym and I'm in the top certain percentage at the gym. So it's like there's a benefit to be friends with me.
Yeah, dude. I love networking at the gym.
It's a great place.
Yeah. I found one of my business partners just by going to a gym by my home. Turned out he was a very good connection. He accelerated one of my businesses incredibly well. And that always reminds me of the book Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. It's a really awesome book. I think I talk about it in every episode I've ever done on my podcast. But it's just because it's a true principle. If you want to accelerate anything in your life, it's not about how you can personally do it. It's about who can help you do it. We all need help. And that's what I love about having a coach is there's a coach for everybody out there. There are enough coaches that there should be a coach, because you have to find a coach that you connect with. That's the process I had to go through, at least. And I think everybody should.
Yeah.
You should go find and interview as many coaches as you possibly can till you find one that you actually connect with and that works for your style, because everybody's energy and everybody's style and coaching techniques are different.
What was like the one thing that made you say yes to the coach that you chose? I'm sure you talked about it on a podcast. I just didn't see that one.
Well, I did a podcast with this coach, actually. We did a deep dive session, and I uploaded it as a podcast just so that everybody could see how this guy does a deep dive. And the reason I went with him, it was multiple reasons. And the baseline for me was he had to understand my business deeply. So much so that he had to be able to give me specific things I could work on within my business, in my industry, to increase my revenue.
Yeah.
And he already has.
Nice.
And all the other coaches I talked to, they had a general idea of what my business was. But this guy understood it so well that he actually started using it on his own coaching business. So we became partners in a way. He gets access to my sites and I get access to his coaching. I still pay him. And he was willing to work within that sort of partnership mindset. And that's really important to me. When I start engaging with somebody, I don't want to just pay them to do a job. I really want to be deeply ingrained in helping them and them helping me at the same time. I feel like that's the way that I get the most value out of my relationships, is when I can help them with what I'm good at and vice versa.
I would agree. Yeah. You're committed at a deeper level. It's not, to your point, there's a connection. It's not surface level. It's real stuff. It's real life. You're connecting deeper. And that's rare, to your point, for sure.
Yeah. And I guess I'll say I was blessed to go through addiction recovery, because that really opened my eyes to how important connection was in first place, and also how to connect with people. I've always had a problem connecting deeply with anyone at all, even my own family. But that's again, it's a skill that can be learned. All these things, they can be learned. There's hope for everybody. If you find it hard to connect right now, don't worry. It's possible. Little by little.
I think
it's not fast.
Right.
Not fast at all.
No, you didn't. That's one of the most common things. It's like if you're 26 years old and something is happening, that is probably been culminating over the last 26 years potentially. So it's not going to happen in 26 minutes. Let's be patient, focus more on progress than speed, and you're probably going to make more progress than you think. It's just not going to happen as fast as you want, most likely.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Bob Proctor has a really cool 5-minute video about having patience. And he calls it the gestation period of an idea. But the concept is humans were wired to expect results quickly, I think. And that helps us in some ways and hurts us in others. But we all know as a race that it takes 9 months typically for a baby to gestate in a mother's womb. And none of us expect it to go any faster than that. That's the time period. Right. So that's what we expect. But it's harder with concepts and ideas that we don't know how long it's going to take to be patient with it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's not a true principle or that it's never going to happen. Just means we have to be patient enough to trust that the process will work eventually, as long as we put in the effort. And by the way, this has been an awesome interview. I try and keep these to 30 minutes, and we're already at 30.
Time flies when you're having fun, my friend.
Yeah, man. You're an amazing guest, and it's no surprise when you have done as many episodes as you have.
I appreciate it.
It's been a super duper easy conversation, very entertaining, engaging for me the whole time. But the last thing I just want to put in there is I believe in God, and I believe that He created everything. He's in charge of everything. And at the same time, I believe everybody probably has their own concept of a God or a higher power. And that is important to being able to make a change in your life, is believing that there's a purpose in making a change. You are here for a reason. We're all here for a reason. It's not a coincidence that we happen to be born on the earth at this time. And I think everybody has gifts and talents that they need to develop, and I believe that they are given from God. So if that's the way that you believe as well, then great. If not, however you explain it and have a framework for believing that we have value, that's probably the last thing I would be interested to hear, is how you help people succeed and believe that they have value in the framework of like a higher power kind of orchestrating things.
Yeah, I don't know if I do have a framework necessarily. We usually start with the identity level first. I think one of the reasons a lot of the people I've had the pleasure of working with, they struggle with low self-worth, because very similar to what you were talking about in the beginning, it's if I do an outcome and I create an accomplishment, then I am worthy of blank.
Yep.
But yeah, we usually start with like the skills of setting boundaries, setting and keeping small promises to yourself, investing in yourself, that type of stuff, because I think for some people it starts externally. I think for other people, maybe it starts internally. I was always somebody who I didn't feel good enough about me. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel valuable. But the more I worked on me, the more I was able to understand that I was, regardless of what I was doing. So I don't know if I have a really good framework from like the purpose of external. I think I probably have a longer streak of practice when it comes to like working on the internal side first, I would say.
Gotcha. And that is something that's just as important. There's value in recognizing our own internal strengths and weaknesses.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Adam.
Yeah, you've been an awesome guest, and I hope maybe one day I could be on your podcast if it would be helpful, but one way or the other, this has been an awesome show, and I believe everybody's going to get a lot of value from it.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate you jamming with me on a Friday. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, my pleasure.
Talk soon.
Adios.